Welcome back into Sports Talk Chicago with Joey Christopoulos. Follow me at Joey Sports Guy. So excited to have this guest back on. He's a returning guest to my show, but his first time appearance here on Sports Talk Chicago. You can follow him at Nicholas Moreano. And look, with training camp right around the corner, this guy has got his pulse on all the breaking news and current updates with the Chicago Bears at CHGO covering the Chicago Bears. It's Nicholas Moreano. What's up, Nick?
How's it going, Joey? It feels good to be back, man.
Great to have you back on. Great to have you here as the co-host of Bears After Dark. You're doing post-game. You're there in the locker room. You're in the training room. You also have a podcast, too, as well, Couples Coverage, which may or may not have a really important episode coming out very soon, too, as well. So so excited to have you back on, man. I wanted to dive right into it. I think the news of the week right now is Connor Williams. Reports come out from Drew Rosenhaus that he is going to be ready for training camp after tearing his ACL week 11. You are so great at diving into not just free agency, but also the draft. So let's just start maybe at step one. What was your initial scouting report and what was your analysis of Connor Williams heading into the offseason?
Yeah, he was a guy that had been on my target for a while. And I think a lot of Bears fans, when looking to address the center position, and I think with Connor, he really does only have 2 seasons at center. And last year it did end a little early with the ACL tear. But when you watch him and just watch his film, what he does as an offensive lineman, as a center, would be a major upgrade for what the Bears even currently have at the position. Fits that wide zone scheme so he can get out in space, but also has that anchor and just, I think, the intellect to help a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams. So it was a guy that early on, if, barring the injury, if he was healthy, you wanted to get a guy like that on your roster. But the Bears obviously went early on in a different direction, getting Ryan Bates, also getting Coleman Shelton to try to figure out what that center spot could be. But Connor Williams, now that looks like he's going to be back and healthy, ready for training camp, I think that if you're Ryan Poles and you're looking at your offensive line, and especially that position, if you feel like Connor Williams gives you an upgrade over the 2 guys that are fighting over the position as it stands today, I'd make that move if I'm Ryan Poles, because you want to do everything to ensure that when Caleb Williams gets on the field, he's going to be comfortable. And yes, he has all the playmakers on the outside. You look at his wide receivers, tight end, running back room, he has that. But up front, there are still question marks, Joey. So I think Connor Williams could help just solidify one of those question marks at the center position, especially if they think he's going to be healthy and ready to go.
And that's the thing, Nick, is unfortunately, look, I try and treat every experience with a Bears quarterback as a new and fresh one, and sometimes we end up with the same results. So I'm trying to detach myself with Caleb Williams, but isn't that the tale as old as time with Chicago Bears football? Is great quarterback, we try and maybe surround him with playmakers, whether it works or whether it doesn't. It sometimes always comes back to that offensive line. So when you talk about the intellect of Connor Williams, I've heard that he also has the versatility. He's played a little tackle. He's played a little guard with the Dallas Cowboys. Is the center position, is that what the Chicago Bears would be bringing him in to be the starting center for Caleb Williams and this Bears offense?
I think so, Joey. And I think when you're looking at a soft landing zone for Caleb Williams, you want to ensure that it's at all aspects of the offense. And we were just kind of talking about, he has the skilled players, but the one scenario that I keep thinking of, like, how could this Bears season go in a downward direction?
Yeah.
It does always stem back to something happening on the offensive line where he has to bail out of the pocket quicker than he would like to, similar to what he was dealing with at USC, where you're gonna develop bad tendencies. You're gonna want to bail. You're gonna want to do hero ball, those things like that, as opposed to playing in the pocket. And if you have a center that you can rely on, then that really does help a lot of what those problems could be if that's if the Bears don't end up getting a Connor Williams. And I don't want to also say that Coleman, Shelton, Ryan Bates won't do a good job. It's just, at this point in time, through the OTA practices that the media has been allowed to go see, one practice, it will be Coleman Shelton. The next practice, it'll be Ryan Bates. And then what will end up happening too, if Coleman Shelton's at center, Ryan Bates is usually at right guard because Nate Davis has been so inconsistent at practicing and being on the field. So for me, I don't like this back and forth. Let's see who works best. Oh, they're both very at the same level. We're just going to put you as a center. If you get Connor Williams, he's your center. And then if you have a legit debate where you don't know what's going on with Nate Davis or you don't feel confident in him to be on the field, Ryan Bates has been practicing there at right guard more than Nate Davis has for the practices that the media has been allowed to see. So if they want to bring in Connor Williams, it will be to play center. And then I think it's really fascinating what ends up happening at right guard.
Yeah, when we're talking about the Bears' offensive line, look, I think depth is a priority, but for me, production is paramount, and that's what I think you're drilling in on right now. And that's, I think, a bigger concern for me than the Chicago Bears' defensive line at this time, because they do have Montez Sweat, they do have Javon Dexter coming back. I got to follow up a little bit on Nate Davis. Help us Bears fans out. I mean, he was one of the big crown jewel free agent signings for Ryan Poles just a couple of seasons ago. Had some off the field issues that obviously were family oriented that I think we all can be empathetic about. But heading into this offseason, you've seen it and you've reported that there's been some unavailability at times. Where does he stand on the depth chart right now? And is he competing for a job at right guard when training camp opens in a couple of weeks?
I think it's a really good question, Joey, because if you ask Matt Eberflus, he was asked directly, is Nate Davis, the guy to start at right guard? He's like, well, hasn't he been? Signifying that, yeah, that's his job. But when he talked to Chris Morgan, the offensive line coach, he kind of opens things up that there's almost a competition there. So I think we're hearing two completely different sides from two very important people when it comes to that right guard position. And for a guy like Nate Davis, like, he just hasn't been practicing, Joey. And I don't care how long he's been playing in the league for. It's like, you still need to practice, especially because you're going to be alongside a new center. You have a rookie quarterback. You just want to have some continuity on the offensive line. And with Nate Davis, he's the opposite of continuity, to be completely honest, at this point, because he just hasn't been available. And for a guy that signed a 3-year, $30 million deal, you're expecting him to be at least available. At this point in time, that has not been the case. So I would say right now, yes, he would be pegged the starter at right guard, but the longer he is not able to be on the field and consistently be out there, stack some practices, those questions are going to keep coming up. Where is he actually going to be the right guard? You do have a guy in Ryan Bates who actually has played more at right guard than he has at center. So there are options there. And if Nate Davis just can't be on the field, then I think you're being forced to make this decision, because you just don't want to have any question marks going into this season. Well, is Nate Davis going to be ready? Did he get enough practice reps? All these things. Yes, it's the same terminology that he's going to have. It was important retaining Chris Morgan, but I still think at the end of the day, you need to practice.
Well, absolutely. And look, I think maybe in a couple of weeks we're about to learn whether Ryan Poles is covering his bases by questioning whether Nate Davis is going to be available or productive, or whether he's just trying to build some depth. And Nick, am I wrong that when Nate Davis finally did see the field last year, I mean, he struggled out of the gate. This isn't a plug-and-play veteran where when we talk about veteran days off, he'll be fine. When the bell rings on Sunday, he's ready to go. When Nate Davis finally did make his debut with the Chicago Bears, he struggled. Am I wrong with that?
No, you're not. He definitely was an uphill battle for Nate Davis in the beginning of the season. I thought towards the end, though, you saw why you brought in a guy like Nate Davis. He's able to get out in space, finish blocks, but it was not pretty to begin with. And again, like those veteran days off, he's not like a Mercedes Lewis who's been doing this for 19 years, and you know what you're going to get out of him. Nate Davis is still learning this game. He still needs to show that he can be someone that you can rely on. And at this point, that hasn't shown to be fact at this point. But I will say towards the end of the year, he played better. And I think it was, again, getting more reps, getting that continuity, playing alongside guys. Of course, that's going to happen. But yeah, definitely when you saw 64 go out there for the first time, like, oh, he won. Obviously, he's going to, dealing with the, the family things going on. But when he got out there, 3 years, $30 million, and he isn't playing to that level that you expect, it just wasn't a very good start for a guy like Nate Davis. But hopefully, I think Bears fans are just hoping that whatever he's dealing with this time, I don't even know if it's what he's injury related or not, what he's dealing with, but can be available during training camp, can stack some practices, and he's got to build some confidence in this fan base, because maybe internally the Bears still feel good about where he's at. I know Chris Morgan was also saying that he's loved what he's done in the film room, because you can't see him out in the practice field, of course. But
Cool.
but yeah, he needs to build that confidence with the fan base, I think.
We're talking to CHGO's Nicholas Moreano here on Sports Talk Chicago. Look, and that's the thing with me, Nick, and I'm so happy to have you on, because that's what I wanted to drill in on a little bit here with the offensive line, is that I feel like every summer, and as a Bears fan, I think we are so excited for Caleb Williams. We are so excited for Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore all paired together. Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet 1-2 combo. What is the unsexy thing, right? It's in the trenches. It's the offensive line. It's not as much fun to talk about in the summer, but unfortunately, it's the thing that I'm afraid that we're going to be complaining about. Hopefully not, but in mid-October, late October. So to put a button on the offensive line for you, Nick, the Bears, I believe, have $21 million in cap space right now as it stands. If they were to offer Connor Williams a deal, hypothetically, what do you think that deal looks like? Do you think it's a 1 year? Is it something that would get over to $10 million? You know, what is the value that Connor Williams has in the open market right now? And do you think the Bears should make a run at him?
No, it's a good question. And I think if anything, it probably would go in the realm of the 1 year deal. Could it reach over that 10 million? Potentially, especially if, agents are going to obviously try to get more for their guys, go to bat for their guys. And look, he's healthy. He's ready to compete. He's ready to get that starting job. It wouldn't surprise me. But if Ryan Poles, look, I think as a former offensive lineman alongside Ian Cunningham, they value what an offensive lineman, especially a center, can provide to a team. But I think it would be more on that 1 year deal. Prove it. Hey, if show that you can consistently be on the field, we'll reward you. Like what Ryan Poles has kind of shown with his guys over these past off seasons. So I think that's where it'll end up being if the Bears do end up trying to pursue a guy like Connor Williams. And look, I'm all for it. I'm all for trying to just help Caleb in any way possible. Like at this point, yes, guys like Coleman Shelton and Ryan Bates have a leg up because they've been in this offense. They've been repping there, but it's been OTA practices. You're not going up against guys in pads at this point. And when you really get into the dog days of training camp, where you're going consistent day after day in pads, that's where the value comes in. So I think if you were to get Connor Williams, yes, he's slightly behind, but he's played a lot of football in his career. And again, he's versatile as well. He can pick up stuff, similar terminology in the wide zone scheme. So I wouldn't be too concerned about him picking up this offense and being ready at whatsoever.
And let's transition over to Caleb Williams, because you said the word intellect earlier on in this hit, and it keeps sticking with me, where I really love the idea that the Chicago Bears would try and surround Caleb Williams with as much NFL intellect as possible, which is why I personally loved the Keenan Allen acquisition, not just for a young player like Rome Odunze, but I think Keenan Allen could teach Caleb Williams a whole lot. And when you talk about intellect with Connor Williams, I mean, isn't that something that we really need to surround Caleb Williams with to insulate him through a rookie season that, look, on this show, Nick, I've been very candid about. I'm so excited to watch him play, but I'm just trying to tell everyone to pump the brakes, that I think some weeks we're going to be so happy and other weeks we may be scratching our head, because that's kind of how rookie seasons go, no matter who you are.
Yeah, no matter who you are. I think Caleb's going to take his lumps, but just knowing what his makeup is, he'll be able to bounce back from them. But I completely agree. Surround him with as much NFL-ready talent and veteran talent as you possibly can. And it doesn't get better at that wide receiver position, having that 1-2 punch with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, then, by a product of those two guys, Rome Odunze is also going to learn a lot. So There was one practice, Joey, where Keenan Allen had just started actually repping with the offense because he was away for a little bit. But I think it was the second practice he was back, where Caleb, had targeted Keenan 3 or 4 times in a 2-minute drill. And it's because he just knew how to get open against a guy like Kyler Gordon, who's I think is going to be a really good nickel corner in this league. But Keenan's been playing this game for 13 years. He knows how to set people up. He knows where his landmarks are. He knows how to get open. And that is such a advantage for a guy like Caleb Williams to have somebody who's played the game at a very high level, very consistent level. And I just think that when you add in, a guy like Keenan Allen and also just veterans like Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett, like that presence that he'll have when he goes into the huddle. Yes, he needs to obviously articulate the play to everybody, but everyone knows what they're going to do. They've been playing this game for a while. And yes, they're all new to Shane Waldron's offense, but it's Caleb had to play a lot of, I think, hero ball at USC. He had to be that guy to make the plays. And he's going to have to do that in the NFL too. But he can shoulder the load a little bit on some of these capable playmakers. And even adding a guy like DeAndre Swift in the backfield, who I can tell you, I think he's going to have a pretty big impact in the passing game, just what he can do against linebackers. Like, such a luxury for a guy like Caleb Williams. Like, this is the ideal scenario that you want for any rookie quarterback. Like, there have been teams where Justin Fields, back then, who's he throwing to in 2022, right? He finally got DJ Moore in 2023, and that he loved that guy. But Caleb has weapons, he has versatility. These guys do different things on the outside too. So it is so beneficial to have that in your rookie season. But again, Caleb will make his own plays as well, but you can kind of pass off things to some of these very, very talented playmakers.
Yeah, the Bears can't quit Dante Pettis, Nick. So he's still around after all this time. You made me think of something just real quick. I do want to get back to Caleb, but when you're talking about that running game a little bit, go a little bit further, because I think it is one of the more underrated storylines heading into this Chicago Bears season offensively. Is you look at the history of Shane Waldron, just go back the last couple of years. What he's done with like a Rashad Penny, what he's done with the Kenneth Walker. I mean, they've had fairly robust running games. And I think Chicago Bears fans for forever were like, get off the bus running the football. Now we want to see Caleb pass. I think there could be a really strong chance that we see complementary productive football from the passing game and the running game, which will make Chicago Bears fans very happy, because they haven't seen that in, I think, maybe my lifetime.
Yeah, I think this offense, even though you do have the playmakers to be just a straight up passing offense, the Bears are not going to do that. They have some capable running backs, and it starts with DeAndre Swift. And, just talking with the running backs coach, Chad Morton, I straight up asked him, like, you have all these wide receivers, tight ends. Like, do you have to, talk to Shane to make sure your guys get, their fill to share when it comes to offensive game plans? And, he seemed really comfortable with, like, we know we're going to get our chance to running backs, and they both came from Seattle a season ago, so they know how to work well together. So I think it is going to be complementary football. By no means is it going to be just straight up the Bears are going to pass it because they have the number 1 overall pick in Caleb and all these pass catchers. The Bears are still going to want to commit to that run game, and they have different backs to do it. I think for the first time, though, since Matt Eberflus has arrived, they really have that home run hitter in a guy like DeAndre Swift, who does have a different gear when he gets into the open field. And as a pass catcher, he does provide something that Roshan and guys like Khalil Herbert don't really have. And it is that route running ability and the ability to get open downfield. And there was this one play in practice where Caleb throws it over to the left side to Keenan Allen. Keenan, who actually has thrown a touchdown pass earlier in his career, actually last year, I believe, against the Vikings, tried to throw a wheel route down to DeAndre Swift against Tyreek Stevenson. It was slightly underthrown, but Swift had a step on Stevenson. So it just shows the versatility I think that this Bears offense can have. And like, again, it's going to be dependent on every matchup, but the Bears are going to want to run the football. I don't think that's when you have Matt Eberflus as head coach, there's always going to be that element of, you want to play good defense, you want to run the ball, but now you have the option. Well, the running game's not working. We can pass it too as well. So I really do think that it is underrated, the rushing attack and some of the guys there. And I think the running backs even feel that way, slightly where, everyone's talking about the pass catchers, but we're still here too. So I do expect DeAndre Swift to, I think a lot of people question that signing because it was like the first one that the Bears made. Like, they sign a running back for what they did. But when it comes to the season, what he can provide for the offense, I think he's going to show well just his versatility of how he can impact the football game.
Yeah, a lot of people's off-season priority lists or blogs kind of blew up when DeAndre Smith was the first thing that they did heading into the off-season. And yeah, man, hey, look, it's a new era for the Chicago Bears. Our quarterbacks can punt. Our wide receivers can throw. When you talk about versatility, let's go. Just a couple more here for CHGO's Nicholas Moreano here. Here's the big one for you, Nick. And the one that I was so excited to ask you because you're there every single day at training camp. You do such a great job reporting day in and day out about the Chicago Bears. And in training camp, a lot of fans can't be there. So we're always wondering, how are things really going? So you were there for last training camp with Justin Fields. And about 3 or 4 months ago, I had the pleasure of having Mark Silverman on the show. And I asked him, my whole life, I always felt like, a reporter would come on and do a radio hit. And they'd always ask, how's the quarterback doing? And then the reporter, sometimes my favorite reporter, Jeff Dickerson or something, he'd be like, well, kind of up and down, like trying to protect and guardrail because it is training camp, but at the same time, kind of throwing up a couple of red flags. So in retrospect, I'm not asking you to comment on what you saw from Justin Fields, but you were there every day during training camp for Justin Fields. For Caleb, what is it for you personally in that first week or even the second week of training camp? What are you looking for that's going to pass the eye test that kind of makes you say, I think he's going to hit the ground running, or you know what I mean, or he's getting it, he's figuring it out. Of course, he'll make mistakes, but are there a few things in your mind mentally right now that you're kind of looking for from Caleb Williams in training camp that kind of give you that optimism heading into the season?
For sure. I think the first thing that comes to mind, and it's tough to gauge because we don't know exactly what the plays are, but you could still watch Caleb from the pocket and see how quickly is he going through things, and is he scrambling too early, or is he just, if a play ends in a scramble, why did it end that way? Yep. And I think what I'll be paying attention to, particularly in training camp, especially early on, from when training camp starts to when it ends, just how quickly is Caleb getting rid of this football? Look, that defense that he's going against is no joke, especially the back seven. Like, they're going to do their job and making it very difficult for the talented pass catchers that the Bears do have. But when there is an opportunity to throw that slant and Caleb, looks over to DJ Moore and it's open against Jalen Johnson, does he deliver the football on time? So that's going to be something I'm really watching for, because there were a couple of practices, even in OTAs, where Caleb would hang on to the football, would run, and then throw the ball out of bounds, or even run with the ball out of bounds, things that you don't typically want to see. But as training camp progresses, I just want to see his natural progression of him, one, I think, understanding the offense more, but also trusting that, the guys are going to be exactly in the place that the play designates them to be, and then him just delivering a ball, because he's shown the accuracy, has the arm strength to put the ball where he wants it to be. It really does just come down to the processing of things. So that will be definitely one thing that I'm watching for with Caleb, just how quickly is he delivering the football? And when he does make that decision, is it, and I don't think I have questions about his accuracy or anything like that. Just when is he getting to his final decision to throw the ball? If it's late, we'll know, because there were a couple times there was a time where he tried to target a receiver over the middle of the field and Tremaine Edmonds got a pick six. Like, you were late on the ball. You had an extra hitch. So just kind of seeing when he does make those mistakes too, how does he then go back in the very next rep and make the correct throw, the correct read, and correct decision overall to make that play work to how it's supposed to work? So that's one thing. I think with Caleb too, you do, like I was talking about accuracy, but there have been a couple of passes, Joey, where you're like, okay, that's a little different. That's a layered throw over the, linebacker that's in the flat. And then the safety couldn't quite get there. And Rome's like, I'll take that. So just kind of watching those types of throws, that's going to be, I think, selfishly just fun to watch, to see like how Caleb can just, again, have different types of throws in his arsenal, where if he needs to layer it, if he needs to rifle something, if he needs to put a little bit more touch, or, on a deep ball, where the location of the ball is at. Those are going to be things throughout training camps and the one-on-ones where I'm going to be on my phone just taking all the notes I possibly can, like, get as accurately as I can for people who aren't here, so they know exactly what I saw. But I think those are going to be, really important. And then also too, he's still learning how to use a verbal cadence. And there were a couple of practices where, there was a false start. So there was some kind of pre-snap issue.
Got to get your offensive line in gear, though, Nick, right? If we're going to be talking about cadence and, pre-snap penalties, they crush rookie quarterbacks and veteran quarterbacks alike.
Absolutely. So, hopefully you have some consistency on the line. So when he goes up there, still learning this playbook, he, again, gets the whole entire play out there, gets everybody in position, and then is able to just execute the play. So watching, maybe there's probably going to be more pre-snap penalties early on than hopefully there are later on. So just watching, again, the natural progression of how he gets better at that, that'll be also something that I'll be keying in on as we're kind of going through training camp. And then selfishly too, when the Cincinnati Bengals come to Lake Forest for the joint practice, like that is going to be a lot of fun. Just seeing how he stacks up against those guys and seeing exactly like, this is what this defense is going to do to you. How do you respond with all the playmakers that you have to, just get your playmakers involved?
Yeah, look, and it's going to be something to keep an eye on, and you're going to be reporting it every step of the way. Of, again, pre-snap penalties lead to down and distance, which gets rookies in trouble, which leads to blitzing. And when we're talking about that decision-making, the opposition is trying to speed up the game for Caleb Williams right now, and that's going to be something just to keep an eye on. But personally, I am hopefully those player apart moments, though, I really do hope that you're like on your phone and you're like, did I just put 12 exclamation points after that? Like, you know what I mean? Like after those particular plays. Let's get you out of here on this. Fellow Hawkeye, I got to tell you, I'm doing radio bits. I'm hopping on, I'm guesting on a bunch of Green Bay Packers pods, Detroit Lions pods, talking NFC North all off season right now. And everybody keeps giving me a hard time that we took Tory Taylor in the 4th round, a punter in the 4th round, God forbid. So this is your backyard. I just want to hear you. I watched him. I covered the Big Ten last year from the producer side. I mean, when we talk about that Hawkeyes defense, we got to talk about Tory Taylor. They're intertwined. So let's pump up our guy here for a second. Tell us a little bit about our new punter, Tory Taylor.
Yeah, Tory, it's crazy to see what he can do with a football. Like I can't explain it, Joey, because like when the punter goes out there, it's usually obviously not the result you probably want if you're wanting the offense to, move the ball downfield. But there was a period where he had 4 to 5 punts inside the 5, and you could just see how he was able to somehow put the spin on the ball, and it would hit at the 1 and then boom, just go right to the left, out of bounds, sideline. It's like, okay, was that luck? No, let me do that again. And then, you have the punt returner have to field it, and even the punt returners, like you've seen Roma Dunze back there. Dante Pettis is kind of watching. You've seen Velas, and they're working because that ball has a different flight pattern than what maybe a traditional punter would have. But I truly think that he can be, like the Bears have said it, he could be a weapon. I do see that. Like the way the ball just jumps off his leg when he punts, there is a force to it. And just if he could be consistent with the accurate punts inside the 20, and then even inside the 5, like you are putting your defense in such a great advantageous situation to wreak havoc on opposing offense. Like that's what Tory Taylor is here to do. And so far, just through the couple of practices we've been able to watch, you're like, now I have to pay attention to the punter because I want to pay attention to the punter because of what he can do. And it's going to be fun. I think too, something underrated is like the punt return battle, like who's going to end up actually getting that job. I know DeAndre Carter was just signed to the Bears, but like Tory Taylor is going to make every single one of those punt returns a lot better because of how the spin and just the touch, like everything that he does. It's fun to watch. Like I've never paid attention to this much punting, while covering the Bears that I have in these past couple of practices, but now I'm really looking forward to it. And again, he's been doing that ever since he was at Iowa. And so that's why he watched Iowa football, because he knew the offense wasn't going to do anything, but the punter, he'll do his job.
Yeah, weapon du jour for the Hawkeyes. Hey, that is such a next level insight, though, that I think maybe Bears fans need to key in on. If he can just make it 7 to 10% harder for the opposition to catch the football,
Yep.
and then you get a little bit of that wind, you get a little bit of that uncertainty. That's sometimes all it takes, because we've seen it. A guy maybe muffs something in the beginning of the game. The rest of the game, he loses that confidence a little
Yeah.
bit. And honestly, those little things can really help you turn the tide, get a short field, whatever it takes. And obviously, we've seen poor punt returning on our side before, so we know that it's an impactful part of the game, and it's a real deal. And I'm hoping that we make all those NFC North people eat their words when they're pinned inside the 5 come September and October.
Yeah, no, I think Tory Taylor, for a lot of people that doubted him, even, my guy Mark Carmen at CHGO gave it a little slack.
That guy,
he's gonna learn to love Tory Taylor. I think he secretly does, but he's like, a punter. Yes, Mark, a punter. So he'll definitely prove a lot of people wrong.
I love the Carm. Good for him. He's probably at City Hall right now, getting the dirty on what's really going on. He was breaking some news in the last couple of days about Arlington Heights. We'll see what happens. CHGO's Nicholas Moreano. We got to get you out of here on Sports Talk Chicago. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Look, man, this is your off season right now, so for you to take the time was really generous, man. It's great to see you. We live in the same city now, so I hope to see you face to face in the near future. But everyone, check out obviously CHGO Sports, CHGO Bears on Twitter. Follow him at Nicholas Moreano. Check out couples coverage too as well. A big episode forthcoming. And thank you so much for joining Sports Talk Chicago.